I think the thing that's always like difficult when watching Star Wars animated shows is you're introduced to these characters and you're like, oh, these characters are so cool, et cetera, et cetera. And then you sit there and you're like, but do you survive like all the way up until the end? Like we know that Star Wars goes up until some crazy person takes some lightsabers and buries them on Tatooine for some
Well, a lot of our
reason.
recent Star Wars has been
That's
in
where it
that
ends.
like episode 3-4 range, right? You've
Right.
had Obi-Wan, Andor, Bad Batch. So like they're really mining this
period. Yeah.
post-prequel, pre-original trilogy area. And yeah, it's tough because it's like, what is the current timeline of Star Wars? Like, are they ever actually going to build off of post-episode 9? When does that come? Like, that seems like a territory no one's really touching right now. So then we know the Mandoverse is like between 6 and 7, which is like its own thing. And then there's like prequel stuff, which is being mined in like books right now. So
The High Republic?
yeah.
Yeah.
How much more, I guess, how many more stories can you tell in this like 15-year time area?
The Clone Wars animation style and these stories, I think, will continue for a while. Like, I think whenever the Bad Batch does come to an end, and you are like, what's the next thing? It will not necessarily be a direct like sequel, if you will, to like the Bad Batch or whatever. I think it will be, we're now going to follow X, Y, and Z in the galaxy during this period because the galaxy is big. There are other stories to tell.
Sure.
The greatest thing I think about the Bad Batch is the fact that there is no Vader, there is no Luke, there is no Jedi or Sith thing. It's, a group of foot soldiers gone bad in the eyes of the Empire. Right. And that's a more interesting story than like what we've gotten in, years past. So I think it's going to continue for a while and then they'll figure out their next period. Like they're really like with the Mandoverse, they're really milking those periods between the trilogies. Yeah. Because again, I think that stuff makes the trilogies more interesting. Like, that's why it's interesting when you look at the sequel trilogy. All you really have is 7, 8, and 9.
I feel like they're just waiting for like that's the next movie stuff, right? And it's just on hold right now. And so they're just like, nope, we're not going to really touch like what's post episode 9. And like these shows can kind of flesh out some of the stuff. I think like we've talked about on this pod before, these shows do a good job of adding context to these 9 movies and like making them more enjoyable. And I think they're hopeful like the Mandoverse, potentially with the Snoke stuff and everything, can really kind of like maybe make that sequel trilogy pop a little bit more with some like retroactiveness and adding some details and whatnot, much like Clone Wars did. Right?
They can go in and animate Grogu in some of those movies, the sequel movies. He's just like in a ship.
Hey, if George was still involved with the the movies, we would have at least 5 different cuts of all these movies for by now that like added full characters and
more Force ghosts.
Yeah, Palpatine would have been in episode 7. It wouldn't have been Snoke ever. It was just Palpatine.
It was Palpatine all along.
Yeah.